I'm here today with Associate Professor Joe Lane of Political Science Department.
Good.
Thanks for being here today with us.
How you doing?
Pretty good. You've had an exciting, really a couple months ago, but it was aired last week on Jeopardy. Could you guide us through the process of how you got onto Jeopardy?
Sure. Well, my wife saw that there was a tryout opportunity online, and had mentioned some years ago probably that she thought I would do well at this. So she told me when it was, and I went online and learned about it, and I signed up to do it. I almost missed it that night. My daughter was having a really hard time getting to bed that night, and so when it came time for the online test to start, I was like running over to the computer just about then to log in because Grace was having trouble going down, and I just took the test online and didn't think a whole lot more about it for quite a while. That was in, I guess, January of 2007, and they didn't contact me until mid-April saying they wanted me to come to D.C. for an audition in May. So you didn't hear anything for a long time. And then you go to D.C. and audition in May, and you don't hear anything else for a really long time, and you're like, well, you know, that was interesting. I guess nothing came of it. And then right at the end of October, they called and they said that they needed me in Los Angeles in 2 weeks. So kind of, it's a long, drawn-out process, and most of the time you're not sure anything's happening in it at all. So.
Right. Was it competitive?
It's pretty competitive, or so I'm told. I guess about 10,000 people sign up to take the online test, and in the course of a year, they're going to film 200 regular shows, roughly speaking, maybe a little bit less than that. So maybe 500 contestants or fewer. It depends on how many ties there are during the course of the year and how many returning champions.
Right.
So that seems like it's pretty competitive. But exactly how they figure out who they're going to use, I don't know. They never tell you this part. So is it because they use the people who got the most answers on the test, or is it some combination of getting a certain number of answers and interviewing well at the audition so they think you're good TV? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
They don't tell you that.
Right.
It's part of the secret.
Right. Could you tell anyone about it when you actually got to be on the show? No,
actually, when they make you a contestant, you sign a whole sheaf of non-disclosure statements where you're not going to talk about the fact that you're going to be on Jeopardy until 2 weeks before air date, and then you're not supposed to talk about what happens in any of the shows that you're on until the day after air date. So you have to spend a whole lot of time dissembling and telling people things other than the truth. I had to miss a big event for my students during the week that I was out there, and so they were all asking, well, why aren't you going to be here? And I'm like, I have to go to a conference. And I felt really bad, but I wasn't allowed to say that I had to go out and film Jeopardy, and so I had to come up with something. I guess it was only a little bit of a falsehood. I did go out there and confer about something, I suppose. But, yeah, it was kind of hard to keep a secret for that long.
Well, I know the students were supportive, even though you lied to them, because I've seen the Facebook group. Did you know about that?
I've been told it exists. I have not actually visited it, no, but I've been told it's there.
Did they pay your way?
They don't actually pay for you to go out there, but it's constructed in such a way that you'll recoup more than your expenses, even if you happen to come in third. So
right.
It's not a losing proposition.
Right. And they require you to bring several sets of clothes to the shoot, don't they?
That's right. Yeah, you have to dress in one day. They're going to shoot a week worth of shows, and there's only about 5 or 6 minutes in between shows. So if you win, you have to run off stage. They send the outgoing champion to a special green room, and there you have to change clothes and come right back out and play again. So you have to make this fiction that there's a lot of different days passing. So you have to have 5 sets of clothes so you can look like you don't wear the same clothes everywhere you go all the time.
That's not a secret that you were supposed to keep in the contract, is it?
No.
Okay.
You can talk about how many sets of clothes. As far as I know, if I'm violating the contract, it's failure to read the fine print. So.
What was it like being on the show?
It was interesting. I mean, first of all, I'd never really been on that type of show, a tape, kind of production. I've been on news sets before, but never on that kind of tape production show. So it's sort of interesting to see how they did it, and it was very clearly the case that the team of people that run the tapings are very used to this. They've done this for a long time. They've got it down to a science. They get you in there at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, and it's like, okay, now's when we do this, now's when we do that, now's when we do the next thing, and they run you through the whole sequence of events that lead up to the first taping of the first show about 3 hours after you get there.
Right.
Really methodically. It's clear that they have a bunch of canned lines that they
right.
tell you, now you're going to go do this, now you're going to go do that. So it was interesting to see it in that sense. And it's also, interesting to play the game and sort of see the game live. It plays out somewhat differently maybe than you'd think from watching television. And so to have that kind of perspective on it was certainly fun.
How excited were you when they had the government questions?
They give you Senate rules and procedures. Actually, I didn't think about it that much, but the first thought I have is, oh gosh, if I miss one of these, I really look stupid, right? Where's my credibility as a political science professor after this? But I did take advantage of it. When they came back from the first commercial break, I had the board, and I went to the highest value clue in that category, hoping that by getting the high value ones, I'd be able to kind of run the whole category down. And I got 4 out of the 5 before someone beat me in on the last one. But it was certainly, one that I thought I could use to my advantage.
Right, and then you nailed that true double Jeopardy.
Yeah, I did. I did. Well, it plays to my strengths. I knew something about Senate rules and procedures. So.
I was very excited when you got that one. I was hooting and hollering. I said, "Don't they know this is Professor Lane?"
Well, they don't. They actually don't know a whole lot. The people who pick out which games you play and who's going to be on each show are a group of attorneys. After the quiz show controversy in the 50s, the production companies aren't allowed to control their own shows anymore.
Right.
So they make up a whole bunch of different games. They had like 20 games on site that day, and they have enough contestants there to play 2 weeks worth of games on any given day. And who plays in which game and which set of questions are used in that game is chosen by the attorneys who don't work for the show.
Right.
And they don't know anything about you except your first name.
Right.
So no, there's no chance that they were either able to give that to me for my benefit or able to avoid it either. It was chance.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. We just had David Baber on a couple weeks ago. He wrote his book about the quiz shows and game shows.
Right.
Now the question I know that you've been asked probably 100 times since coming back to Emory.
I'm sure.
What is jalopy?
A jalopy is a silly answer you write down when you can't come up with a real one. I was really hung up on that final Jeopardy question about the idea that it was something made from the parts of something else.
Right.
So you took the parts that had made up something and you used them to construct something else. And back when you had more or less interchangeable parts on cars, you couldn't do this today. You could go to a junkyard and you could take a manifest from one automobile and a gas tank from another and a fuel pump from a third, and you could actually build a car out of these things. And that was called a jalopy, when you would just piece together parts from different cars in order to kind of jerry-rig a car together. And so that's what my mind kept coming back to in terms of building something out of the pieces of other things.
Right.
And I couldn't get off that answer. The idea of rising from the ashes of something had been a possibility that just never really dawned on me. And so I was always working from it, trying to think of what mythic thing was built from the parts of other things, and the only thing I had that was built from the parts of other things was a jalopy.
Right. And could you tell us what the last question was?
It was, I won't remember the exact wording. It was something like the mythic name given to a 2007 Mars probe that was built out of the parts left over from scrapped missions in 2001 and 2004.
Right.
And the answer was Phoenix, having risen from the ashes of something, but I was really hung up on that idea of the parts, and that's why I never got to Phoenix, I guess, as I tried to reason it out.
Right, and I felt your pain because you had it won up until that final question.
It really was the case that if I had played it the way I went in planning to play it, I should have won. My brother and I talked the day before filming about strategy, and we had figured out from just looking at recent shows that I got about 75 or 80% of the daily doubles right, and I got about 2/3 of the final Jeopardies right. So my odds were better on daily doubles, and we drew the conclusion that if you got near the end and you could win with a daily double, you should bet it all to win on the daily double, not wait for final Jeopardy.
Right.
And I got the last question. It was a daily double. If I'd bet $8,400, I would have been out of reach. They couldn't have got to me, and I decided to bet conservatively, relatively conservatively. I bet $2,000. And that's why I needed to get final Jeopardy right. If I'd stuck to my original game plan, I think I would have been okay, because I certainly knew the answer to the daily double.
Right.
On the other hand, if I had bet all that much money on the daily double and I'd missed that, I would look pretty stupid too. So there you go.
Well, I think you did a fine job, and a fine job today. I appreciate you coming in.
Oh, my pleasure, Blake. It was
Letting us take
nice
your time.
talking to you.
You too.